These players had great regular seasons. Some were all-stars and even MVPs, but during the playoffs, they dropped the ball and disappeared when their team needed them the most. These are the most disappointing players of the 2023 NBA playoffs. Jordan Poole exploded onto the scene in the 2022 playoffs, shooting the ball like the second coming of Steph Curry. Poole was instrumental in the Warriors' 2022 championship run, which got him the nickname the Third Splash Brother. But even more importantly, Poole got the big bag, $140 million over 4 seasons. 2 weeks prior to Poole's contract signing, he got punched in the face by Draymond Green, which derailed team chemistry.
Because that won't be fixed in a day. You know, it may not be fixed in a week. It may not be fixed in a month.
But chemistry has nothing to do with making open shots. In the 2022 playoffs, Poole averaged 17 points on 51% from the field, 39% from 3, and 91% from the free throw line. In the 2023 playoffs, he scored 10 points per game, making just 34% of his shots, 25% from 3, and 76% on free throws. The lowlight was the potential game-tying shot in Game 1 versus the Lakers, when Poole launched a hasty 35-foot 3, which missed badly.
Jordan Poole lets it fly, no!
To make things worse, Poole was a black hole on defense, and his decision-making was awful. He looked like a lost rookie on the court, and the Warriors were better when he was on the bench. Another Warrior who can't be put in quite the same boat as Poole, but deserves to be mentioned, is Klay Thompson. Klay is a 4-time champ and a shooting genius, but he missed so many open shots against the Lakers that he has to be included. In the last 4 games of the series, Klay made 14 out of 56 shots, or 25%. With that kind of shooting from 2 of their 3 best shooters, the Warriors had no chance. But if Klay's shooting struggles were surprising, we kind of expected it from Julius Randle. Randle is proving to be a regular season player, one who puts up great numbers in the regular season and then disappears in the playoffs. In the 2021 regular season, Julius averaged 24 points on 46% shooting and 41% from deep. In the playoffs, his numbers sunk to 18 points on 30% shooting and 33% for 3. In the 2023 regular season, Randle was scoring 25 points per game, making 46% of his shots and 34% on triples. In the playoffs, his averages dipped to 16 points, 37% from the field, and 26% from 3. Now, some people will defend Randle and say that he was playing on a bad ankle, but Jimmy Butler played on a bad ankle, LeBron did too, and they seem to do just fine. Randle is a 2-time All-Star, and he performed like a bad third option, and that's being generous. Now, while being an all-star and underperforming is one thing, what if you're the league MVP? Joel Embiid had a season for the ages, averaging a league-leading 33 points per game, shooting 55% from the field and a respectable 33% from deep. But just like Randle, Embiid has made a habit of disappearing in the playoffs. His efficiency drops every postseason, and the Sixers never made it past the second round with Joel as their main player. In the 2023 playoffs, Embiid averaged 10 points less than in the regular season, on 43% shooting and just 18% from 3. Yes, you can make a case for Embiid that he wasn't fully healthy either, especially since a missed Game 1 against Boston. But Embiid is known for injuries in the playoff time, and a part of it is bad luck. However, Joel deserves to be blamed too, because he's accustomed to falling down after the slightest of touches. But what surely pisses 76ers fans off the most is that he becomes David Copperfield when it matters most, pulling off a disappearing act in the 4th quarter. In a close Game 4, which Philly won, Embiid scored 2 points in the 4th on 1 for 6 shooting. In Game 5, another Philly win, Embiid scored 4 points in the final quarter. In a must-win Game 6 at home, the league MVP scored 6 in the 4th, but he didn't touch the ball in the final 4 minutes of the game. It shouldn't matter if they're double-teaming or triple-teaming you. What kind of MVP doesn't demand the ball in crunch time? But Philly and Embiid had one final chance to make it right and win a Game 7 in Boston. In the first half, the game was close, with the Celtics leading 55-52. In the second half, it was a blowout, and Boston outscored Philly by 21. Do you know how many points Embiid had in the second half? Just 2, on 1 for 6 shooting and without a single trip to the free throw line. Yes, Boston guarded him with Horford and Robert Williams, and it was hard to get a shot off, but not to be aggressive and at least get a foul? That's unacceptable. And to make matters worse, Embiid threw his team under the bus in the press conference after the loss.
I can't win alone. Me and James, we just can't win alone.
Even though they're the ones who should be blaming him. Embiid might be the league MVP that he so desperately lobbied for in the media. And we're not talking about KD's mom here, but the world found out who is the real MVP. And since we're on the subject of Philadelphia's superstars disappearing in the fourth quarter, we can't forget about James Harden. Like Randle and Embiid, Harden also has a history of underperforming in the most important games, something he was doing in Houston and is now repeated in Philadelphia. Now, granted, Harden won Game 1 against Boston by himself, scoring 45 points and playing one of the best games of his life. James was spectacular in Game 4 as well, finishing with 42 points in another 76ers win. But when you're a superstar, 2 games don't make a series, and you can't become a champion by playing 2 great games and 5 bad ones.
James Harden was so awful, so bad, he should actually shave his beard so he could hide his identity.
In Games 5, 6, and 7 versus the Celtics, Harden had as many points in the fourth quarter as you and me. 0. Other than those 2 40-point games, the Beard averaged 13 points in the other 5 games, with Game 7 being especially painful. Harden passed up shot after shot, driving to the paint and not daring to take a run at an unguarded basket, always kicking it to the corner. When your option A is double-teamed, then your option B has to take over, and Harden failed to do so time and time again. The Sixers should strongly reconsider signing Harden to a big deal in the offseason. Since he's getting up there in age, maybe it'd be better to let him go and free up the salary cap, rather than trap themselves in a corner with Harden's salary, especially after this kind of performance. But we're not the general managers, so let's talk about a few other disappearing acts in the 2023 playoffs. If you've been following our channel, you might know that Donovan Mitchell made this list last year after forcing shot after shot, not passing the ball, and shooting under 40% from the field and 20% for 3. This season, Donovan had another great regular season, averaging 28 points on 48% shooting, 39% from deep. But just like last year, he was forcing it in the playoffs, attempting too many tough shots, which derailed his shooting efficiency and didn't help his teammates. In fact, the only game the Cavs won in these playoffs was when Mitchell shot 6 for 11 and didn't hoist up tough jumpers like there was no tomorrow. Against the Knicks, Spida's scoring decreased from 28 to 23 points, and he shot just 43% from the field and 29% from 3. He did pass the ball better, with 7 assists per game, and certainly wasn't terrible. But for a guy that made the second All-NBA team, his numbers should go up, not down. The same can be said for his teammates Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. Mobley is one of the most talented big men in the game, and while he's primarily known for his defense, he really struggled offensively. From 16 points on 55% shooting in the regular season, Mobley dropped to 10 points and 45%. A similar story goes for Allen, whose numbers dropped across the board, and who then gave an excuse that no Cavs fan wanted to hear.
Even for me, the lights were brighter than expected.
And then there's one more 2023 All-Star who struggled in the playoffs, but his mistakes usually fly under the radar. That's because he's an under-the-radar kind of guy, and the last player you'd think of when talking about the 2023 All-Stars. It's Drew Holiday, whose shot regularly disappears in the playoffs, and it's time that someone calls him out. Here's a stat to prove it. In the last 3 regular seasons, Holiday has been making 50% of his shots and 40% of his threes. In the last 3 playoffs, he's hitting 40% of his shots and 30% from 3. But hey, you can't say anything about the man's consistency. Each year, he's shooting exactly 10 percentage points less than in the regular season. The fact that the Milwaukee Bucks lost in the first round as the first seed was something nobody expected, even though that's largely because Giannis was injured and missed 3 games of the series.
I mean, you got the best player in the world on your team. There's no way you can replace him.
But since they're the first seed, somebody has to take the blame. It isn't Giannis, who didn't play up to par, but he gets a pass because of the injury. Chris Middleton played to his standards, so it's gotta be Drew. In addition to his shooting struggles, Drew couldn't do anything defensively against Jimmy Butler, who torched him up for 56 and 42 points in deciding games, getting past Holiday like a knife through hot butter. And because Drew made the all-defensive team for the regular season, that's why he deserves to be on this list. Another guy that's also known for his defense and hustle, and did neither in the playoffs, and to make things worse, he also embarrassed himself with his words. We're talking about DeAndre Ayton.
I could do a better job defending Jokic than what DeAndre Ayton is doing.
Who called himself dominating after the first-round series win against the Clippers.
I don't know what that is. Come on, bro. I play both ends of the floor. My name is dominating.
Okay, first of all, dominating is kind of a cringe nickname, especially when you give it to yourself. Second of all, the Suns defeated the Clippers without Kawhi and Paul George. DeAndre wasn't really the one doing the dominating. It was Booker and KD. And third, and most important, Ayton immediately got dominated by Nikola Jokic, who took him to school like he was one of his kids. Sure, nobody expected Ayton to outscore Jokic or even stop him because the Joker is a basketball wizard. But the real issue was DeAndre's effort, his rebounding, and the fact that Jokic routinely outran him in transition. Jokic was supposed to be this pudgy, unathletic guy, and Ayton the physical marvel who came to the NBA as one of the most athletic centers of his generation. And then to get outrun and out-hustled like that, it's just a bad look. But Ayton wasn't the only center who got dominated by Jokic in the 2023 playoffs, as Karl-Anthony Towns can also join that party. Towns is a player that's really skilled, but he never really delivered on the promise of being the first overall pick. He never truly dominated the game and took over, and compared to the regular season, his numbers have routinely dipped in the playoffs. Cat also never really adjusted to playing with Rudy Gobert, so it wasn't too surprising that he averaged just 18 points in the first-round playoff loss against Jokic. A player who you probably wouldn't expect to be mentioned plays on a team that had the best season in 17 years. The Sacramento Kings had plenty to be happy about after they ended the longest playoff drought in NBA history. They almost won their first-round series against the Warriors, and if there's one player who could have gotten them over the hump if he played better, it's Kevin Huerter. Red Velvet was the Kings' third leading scorer in the regular season, with 15 points per game. He was also their second most efficient player, shooting 49% from the field and 40% from three. Huerter started all 7 games against the Warriors and couldn't buy a bucket. He scored just 9 points per game, shooting a horrendous 35% from the field and 20% from three. For a guy that's known as a knockdown sniper, that shouldn't happen. However, there is a guy who had an even worse shooting slump in these playoffs.
I poke bears. I don't respect no one until they come and give me 40.
Dillon Brooks is like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant. He messed with the wrong bear and got messed up. Brooks had an excellent regular season, highlighted by the selection to the second All-Defensive team. Dillon is known for his defense and his big mouth, and both of those were on display in the playoffs. He was great at defending LeBron James, and after the Game 2 Memphis win, Brooks was feeling himself. He disrespected LeBron James.
I don't care, he's old.
Who is the worst kind of guy to disrespect. To say that his comments backfired would be an understatement. The Lakers went on to win 3 of the next 4 games and the series, with Brooks providing one of the worst shooting performances in playoff history. Sure, smart shot selection and efficiency are not Brooks' strengths. He shot just 40% from the field and 33% for 3 in the regular season, but in the playoffs, he was a disaster. Dillon shot a playoff-worst 31% from the field and 23% from 3, scoring a measly 10 points per game. He wanted LeBron to give him 40, and that's exactly by how much the Grizzlies lost the last game of the series. To add insult to injury, Brooks failed to provide comments to the media after the final 2 losses to the Lakers, which was a soft move. And to make things worse, the NBA fined Brooks $25,000 for declining his media obligations, and the Grizzlies announced that they would not extend his contract under any circumstance. Because of his antics, Brooks severely diminished his value in free agency, losing millions of dollars. In the future, it'll be interesting to see if he's going to keep poking bears.